Hey guys, Josh Carter here, One Objective Outdoors. In today's video, we're going to be going over my top 5 fall baits, so stay tuned. Alright guys, like I said at the beginning of this video, we're going to be going over my top 5 fall baits. Here it is, it's the first week of October. It's really starting to cool down at nights. The days aren't as warm, and we get a few of them days here and there where it's going to be in the 80s. But for the most part, you're getting 50, 60 degree nights. Also, a lot of times, especially right around the country right now, we've had a lot of rain coming in from hurricanes and tropical depressions. So, you're getting a lot of that runoff and all that. So a lot of the bait fish are going to start pulling towards the backs of the creeks maybe a little bit quicker. I've already seen a bunch of them in the backs of the creek. Some of the creeks I've been in is full of bait fish right now. So there's fish around them. I've been throwing, some baits in the very, very back, as 2 foot of water, and seeing fish roll out of these trees and lay downs and stuff way back there. So they're moving back there, and that's something that you got to key in on right now on the fall transition. Is they are pushing on bait fish a lot right now. They're really keying in on bait fish. So the top 5 baits I have are going to be basically bait fish oriented. So, but my number one, let's start with that. My number one all-time favorite fall bait is going to be a topwater. It's going to be a buzz bait. This is actually one that I've made up, and if you guys are interested, I can shoot a video on how I make my buzz baits. It's very simple, easy. Anybody can do it. Saves you a lot of money. And like I say, it's just rewarding when you make something, you go catch fish off of it. But basically what I do is I order the heads here, and then these are already, I got a mold that I can do my own, pour my own, but basically I just been buying the heads pre-done. They got a really good hook in them, really sharp. I still put a little bit of sharpen on them, but they're really good. And then I just change up my blades. Like this one here is more of a brass blade or bronze blade, whatever you want to call it, copper. And this one I don't have a skirt on. This one's just got like a regular trailer. You can run a Kitech, you can run, this is the Big Bite Baits. I can't even think of the daggone name of this one right now, but I just change it up to different things. I put flukes on them, you can put frogs on them. And some buzz baits don't run great when you put certain soft plastics on them, but so far this setup here has run really good with just different soft plastics. So the other good thing about it too is this buzz bait's a little bit smaller. This is a 1/4 ounce. And I can skip it up under docks really well. So this is just one of my favorite baits I like to use. Now, if I'm running this and I start getting a lot of blow-ups, but they're missing it, sometimes what I'll do is I'll take this off and put a skirt on, and that way I can run a trailer hook. I really can't run a trailer hook too much with this kind of bait on there. It makes it run funny, it does stupid stuff. So I'll go with one with a skirt and just run a trailer hook on it. So, but buzz bait, my number one fall bait by far. You can go spring, you can go all year long with a buzz bait basically, until the water gets down under the 50s. I'm gonna say under 50 degrees. But there's guys that still throw it in. I just don't have confidence on it once it hit about 49. I'm about done. So, but like I say, number one bait you must have tied on in the fall. All right, number 2 for me is going to be a spinnerbait. I'm a spinnerbait guy. I've thrown spinnerbaits basically since I started fishing. This is what my dad got me throwing. It's an easy bait to throw around cover. It generates a lot of bites, and it's just a fun bait to fish in general. You can fish it anywhere, rock ledges, you can fish it on laydowns, docks. Certain spinnerbaits you can kind of skip up under docks. It's just you can change it up to having just a trailer hook, or you can change it up just to have like a shad style bait catch, Kitech bait or something like that. So but this is the Z-Man Sling Blade. This is their small and their finesse bait, and the reason why I like this spinnerbait here is just the really small. It's a small profile for one, but also the small blades, because this time of the year the shad are really small. A lot of the bait fish I'm seeing in the backs of the creeks are about the size of that blade right there. So when it comes to spinnerbaits, I try to match the hatch with the blade. You know what I mean? That size blade. So now I'll change this up. Sometimes I'll change it up to a chartreuse depending on how muddy the water is. Like this weekend we got a tournament. The water could be a little muddy. It could be dingy back there, so I'll switch over to a chartreuse. This is more that mouse or muskrat color that they have. This actually produces all year long for me. It's a really good spinnerbait. But definitely recommend throwing a spinnerbait. Number 2 top fall baits. Alright, my third bait on the list is going to be a Squarebill crankbait. Now this right here is great for getting up under docks, because some lakes, like I say, I know we're talking about all the rain we've been getting and lakes coming up. Some lakes this time of year, the lakes are low, so if you got docks with poles and all that stuff, you can really get a crankbait up under the docks there. And I've caught some really big fish doing that. This is Ott's, one of Ott's Squarebills that he does. What do they call this? A Roco or Ruco or whatever. I don't know what they call it. But I throw this a lot, and I've caught a lot of fish off of this here lately. I just started throwing it this year. Well, actually, end of last year. And man, this has been a phenomenal bait. You gotta be careful because you don't want to smack a dock, which that's any crankbait. You can tear them all to pieces. And I'd recommend getting a couple of them just in case you do. But this is more in that shad color, as you can see. It's got that white with the grayish on the top, a little bit of pearl in it. And it's actually like a slight greenish on the top as well. Just a perfect shad imitating bait. It's a small profile. You can take this over, on the sides of rocks, beating on the sides of docks when you're coming by them, and and bouncing into poles. And also, like if you got shallow grass or weed lines, you want to throw it around. And for me, like laydowns, I love throwing them on laydowns. I'll throw it way up in there and just slowly work it out of there. You ain't got to work it fast. Just slowly work out of there, hitting stuff, letting the crankbait do the work. And man, I'm telling you, it's a crankbait's hard to beat this time of the year, especially if it's kind of calmer. I mean, you can throw it windy days, all that stuff. I throw it all day long sometimes, but what I'm getting at is teamed up with some of these other baits. If you ain't getting the bites off these other baits, you can throw these in there. You can get a little bit further in there and just beat it around and everything. Gets that more of a reaction bite. But also the cool thing about it over like a buzz bait and a spinnerbait is when you throw it in there and you hit a tree, and it'll slowly float back up. And that way it gives the fish an opportunity to kind of look at it, and when you hit it again, he'll come after it. So you can kind of keep it in a strike zone a little bit longer, especially throwing, like say, around laydowns and stuff like that. It's just a fun bait to throw. And they got great sharp hooks on them. And just a Squarebill, with just the way a Squarebill is, it just bounces off stuff so much easier. I will say, I'll add this in here, I do throw also, I got some crankbaits in like the 10-foot range. I'll either throw them in a crawfish color a lot of times, because sometimes they'll feed on them crawfish real heavily in the back. So if you got fish that are just keying solely in on shad, you can kind of work around the banks and throw something in crawfish color. Just give them a little bit something different to try. I have had situations like that where a crawfish colors work better for me when I get back here around all them shad. So just something to think about when you're fishing a crankbait. Alright, number 4 for me on the list is going to be a bladed jig. Now this is like this here is a slobber knocker. I throw this in the jackhammer a lot. I just switch it up. And this one, the reason why I was throwing this one was just because of the color I had it in. I like the colors that was on it. It has that bluish green tint to it on the top. It's very similar to the crankbait actually that I'm throwing. As you can see, they got, if I can get the camera right here, the bait's right here, but it's just they match. So if they don't want the crankbait and they want something a little more vibration, or you're getting a little bit of stained water and you just want that little bit more vibration, a bladed jig is really good. And the slobber knocker and the jackhammer I've both had a lot of success on, so I can't say one's better than the other. There's a little bit different head design and all that, but I mean, they both work really well, and like I say, I can't complain. Now this is something that we've really started dabbling in the last 2 years and trying to get our setups right with. And when I went up there and fished Wolf and Fox on the Hobie series, the ChatterBait was key for me, but that was a jackhammer and that was a chartreuse color. So, but I mean, we just really started dialing this in. I love throwing like a ChatterBait down at Bugs Island. I'm just now getting to where I'm having some success with it on Smith Mountain Lake. So, but I highly recommend throwing this. And the great thing about this is you can skip it under the docks. You can skip it up under like laydowns. Anywhere you really want to put this, it might be a little bit harder to put like a buzzbait or a crankbait or a spinnerbait. You can put this way up in there. But now the key too is, I didn't talk about rods on most of these other ones, but for me throwing this ChatterBait is having the G Loomis ChatterBait rod. The reason why I say that, because you got enough tip on here. It loads up great. It helps you skip that bait a whole lot easier. I've tried skipping it on other rods, and I'm not saying you can't do it on other rods. I'm just saying having the right setup, the right tip and all that, to be able to load it up, to be able to get that bait up onto the docks, and having a good reel. This is the Shimano Corrado DC, but I mean you can do it with other setups. But the main thing is having a good smooth reel and a good rod. But it also has a good backbone for setting the hook on these fish. So, but like I say, and also another thing about this too is you don't have to just throw it up under there and retrieve it. This is a great bait that you can work like a regular jig. You get it by a brush pile or something, you just throw it over there and just pop it off the bottom. I mean, there's several different ways that you can work a bladed jig other than just casting and reeling. So I highly recommend just putting this in your arsenal all year long, but I really recommend throwing this in the fall. Alright, number 5 for me on the list is a jig. It's really hard to beat a jig this time of the year. Early spring, early fall through late, basically the rest of the season here, I mean you can throw a jig. The only time I really don't have the best success with one, and that's just me fishing, is in the summertime, because I'm normally throwing like bigger worms or bigger crawls or stuff like that. And I mean, Missile Baits does have a really big crawl that you can buy now, but this is not the stuff I fish. So, but this is the Missile Baits Ike's Mini Flip, and when I pull out the jig is like when the sun comes up really good, the fish are pulling up into the shade lines of the laydowns and rock and all that stuff. If none of these baits are producing anymore and I need to try to either pick up a big bite, I'll pick the jig up and start flipping a lot of laydowns. Or like say if I come over and I flip these baits through there and I don't get a bite and I see a good couple pockets or holes I want to put this in, I'll put it over there and maybe grab another extra bite sometime. So when it comes to this time of year, you really want to break down everything that you're fishing until you start figuring out exactly where they're sitting at, whether they're on the ends of the trees or ends of the docks or way up under the docks. But once you start keying that in, then it makes it easy. But if you haven't keyed that in, you want to kind of throw a little bit of everything at everything you fish, just to kind of break it all down and start figuring out where those bites are at. This has played big for me for, like I said, when I get that limit and I'm starting to flip around, trying to get a bigger bite, or you keep this in your hand all day and you can go flipping all day. But you get in the backs of them creeks where it's so much shad, kind of like I was talking about with the crankbait earlier, switching over to like a crawl color. You get in the back where there's so much shad and they're just very keyed in on the shad, you might be able to kind of go pluck around the ends, go find some laydowns and just try to break everything apart with a jig and maybe score you a couple good bites. So, but yes, definitely the jig for my number 5. This is when things aren't working, things are slowing down, and I really need to slow down. I'm gonna start putting that jig in there and seeing if I can get me a good bite to help make a difference for the day. So. But other than that, guys, hope y'all enjoyed the video. That's my top 5 fall baits. That's what you're going to see on the front deck of my boat. Now, there's other baits that you can throw when things really get tough. Drop shots and shaky heads and hover minnows and all that stuff. And but I try my best to stay away from those until all this doesn't work, and or I find a few spots and I'm like, I think I need to skip a shaky head way up and just see if something's there. But 9 times out of 10, this is basically what you're going to see on the front deck of my boat in the fall. And there might be a couple different crankbaits, it might be a couple different jig colors, it might be a little bit of something that I'm trying, but other than that, it's basically going to be these kind of baits right here. So, but guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. We got more videos coming out like this. We got a lot more content going to be coming out with fishing. I know things were a little slow there for a while with us getting out content. Just heat of the summer, and there was a lot of family stuff going on, vacations and all that. So, but other than that, stay tuned. We got a lot more content coming for you guys, and I hope you like it so far. And thank you to all the subscribers that have subscribed so far. And we hope we pick up a few more of your buddies. But other than that, we'll talk to you later, guys. See ya.